Hello everyone, I'm Gary, and I'm a grateful member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I think that's a little close to me. Great to be out with you folks this morning, and it's been a long time since I've been up this way. I came to this meeting a few times, but not for at least 2 or 3 years, maybe 4, could be longer. I see a beautiful little face over there, so there are people that I recognize in the room, and that's always a good feeling. Before we get into a little bit of a discussion of the 10th step, let me just kind of qualify and let you know that I didn't just stumble in this room by accident. I was in my mid-30s, and I was coming out of a Marlboro courthouse after my 3rd DUI. And I walked up the street. If you know Marlboro at all, I come down Broad Street and right up on French Hill, and I walk right into a bar room. It's 10 o'clock in the morning, and a judge has just released me on my own recognizance. And I'm walking into a bar room looking for a drink. So that's the powerlessness of this disease as it manifested itself in my life. And I was to drink that day and get drunk, and I'm going to tell you, I drove again. It wasn't until the following day, on a bright, beautiful April morning in 1988, that a gentleman brought me into Alcoholics Anonymous, and from there I've stayed sober until today. Now, I didn't find the Big Book recovery for 20 years. So I spent 20 years trying to fumble through the steps as they're laid out in the 12 and 12. And people, people did the best they could with me in introducing me to them. And I thank God for that 12 and 12, because at least I got a little bit of an understanding of what was going on. You know, it wasn't like I came in 20 minutes late into an algebra class and was trying to figure it out. I had the general, framework was there for me, but really, there was no way to get it done properly. And I would go on retreat weekends. That first year I was sober, I was off on a retreat weekend with a couple of fellas in AA. And I actually did my first 4th step over the course of that weekend. On a Saturday morning, I got up and started doing some writing. And Saturday evening, I had finished, by that Saturday evening, I had finished my 4th step and was ready to do my 5th. So there's the quality of my recovery. And I left that weekend, I felt great. I had made a start, and that's about all I had done. And probably, so I left there Sunday, like I say, I was feeling wonderful. And come Monday morning, I was the same horse's ass getting into the truck. But I knew that something was going on there, and if I was to do this work probably a little more thoroughly, I might feel a little better. But it took 20 years until some gentleman got me to a men's Big Book step study in Framingham. At the time, it was right in Framingham Center, and I had a couple of buddies who had been going to Big Book step study, one whom had completed it, and another who was still in the work, and suggested that I get to this meeting. And eventually I did. And when I walked down those stairs, and there was a room full of maybe 30 men, and I started to listen to them share from a depth that I had no knowledge of, and from a spiritual center that they were comfortable with. And they could easily identify, what was going on in their lives. And I left there with a gentleman, and when we were on the ride home, and he says, "So what'd you think?" And I was kind of quiet. I said, "Well, I think I probably need to go back there." And He said, yeah, I think it's a good idea too. So there began my journey into Big Book. I was writing within the next couple weeks. I was reading and writing within the next probably couple months. And so it took me about 18 months to finish the work. And I had a medical thing go on along the way, which brought me away from my writing. And when I got back to it, I'll tell you, it was probably no more than 3 or 4 months to finish this work. And I know that it can be done because I've seen others come in and just go right to it. There's one fellow that I sponsored. He was just voracious. He wanted this recovery so bad that he was done with it in about 90 days. And it was, I'm talking about extremely thorough. So it can be done if I were to put my mind to it, or if we were to, dedicate ourselves to it. It can be done quickly. So, and I've heard it often said, how soon do you want to feel better? And I suppose I didn't. I don't know. I don't know that I was ready to dedicate myself to it, regardless of if I hadn't had a physical ailment come along. But at any rate, today, I'll talk a little bit about today. This morning I woke up, another bright, beautiful, sunny morning, and I'm getting ready to go out and to head here. And so I jump in the shower, I take my shower, I get out of the shower, and my little dog, I got a couple of little pooches. One of them's on the bed, and the sun's trying to get in, and I'm fighting with the blind to get the blind down. So my solution is just to yank the blind down, and we'll fix it later. So there's my best thinking on a bright and beautiful, sunny morning when I'm not connected, when I'm not properly tuned in to to the God of my understanding that I found in these halls. So a little bit of what went on most recently. I'll talk just a taste about the 10th step and what it means to me. It talks about continuing, and in the beginning of the first, there's only about 5 or 6 paragraphs in this step, and it talks about continue. I continue to take personal inventory, and if I commence this way of living, and have cleaned up the past, which I've done, I've entered the world of the Spirit. So if I've entered the world of the Spirit, I need to make some contact with that Spirit. I need to try to create and develop this relationship that I have. And what I didn't do this morning was I didn't take that time. I got up in a hurry, and I didn't stop at my computer. I have a reading that I get sent via email. It's Henry Nouwen is one of my, is just a writer that I love his work, and I get a reading delivered to me every morning via email, and I didn't read that this morning. And I got up, I was into the coffee, I had made a deposit in a bank, in one of my bank accounts, and today you can shoot a picture of the check with your phone, and so I'm really high tech now. And last night about 9 o'clock I'm doing that, and I'm thinking all is good. And I get up this morning, and I usually see, ba-ding, there's some dough in my account. And this morning there was no ba-ding. So I'm immediately in fear, right? And because I've got checks that got to clear, and blah, 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 the whole routine. And that fear kept me from my routine. And I paid for it in that moment. And I knew what I had done, and I turned to Paula and I apologized. And I said, honey, I'll fix it when I get home. And God bless her. I don't know. She's been with me a long time, and she accepts that. But to accept that, that's not good enough. I need to behave a little better than that. And so that's just the point, to point you to a failure of mine, that I sit here and I tell you I'm a flawed man. But I will attempt, and I made the apology, and I will attempt to behave better. So I can't sit in that remorse any longer. I have to accept that that was the behavior. And I'm addressing myself to behaving better next time. And that's what I think this step is all about, is that I get back to the business of life. And I try to, to carry that message. So I bring that message to you folks this morning that, that we have this step for a reason. This is my walking around step, as people say. And it shows me how to, how to live. And now, another example of a 10th step, I'm going to tell you how it works professionally for me. Last Wednesday, I've been on a job now for about 4 months, and it was supposed to be concluded the end of March, and about March, April, was the target date. And this thing is, the scope of work has changed. There's a whole bunch of additional work that's been thrown into the pot, and I have a contract price, which includes a management fee of a lump sum, and that's just not going to work out. And so I presented the developer with that. I initiated the subject early in the week, and figuring that we'd touch back on it as the week progressed, and we did. And he comes to me yesterday morning, because I get my payments on a weekly basis to cover payroll and the like. And he tells me of this fear I created in him. Now there's a normal human being, who's able to touch upon that within himself, and that I had created it in him. So there's a son of a gun who knows how to hit me square in the eye, doesn't he? And I immediately, he had my attention. I mean, if it was a normal guy who just came out and, got bombastic and, I could have understood him. But this guy who spoke from the heart, he had me. And I listened. And he told me, what was going on for him, and he recognized that this, that there wasn't a fair and balanced, remuneration going on any longer, that everything had changed. But it was the way I approached it that created fear in him, and he was going to tell me about that. I can't have you just leaving, he said, and I'm stuck with all this, so I owed him an apology. But it takes me time to process stuff, and he's on the job as well throughout the course of the day. And I said, he said, so what do you think? I said, I'm the kind of guy who has to process stuff. I said, so let's just go. I'm very busy. You're busy. We'll get to this. We'll get back to it, and we did. And I was able to apologize to him before I left the job yesterday afternoon for creating strife in his life. And that's what I had done, And so this is all 10th step stuff that I'm learning to live by, that I've, it's been worked into me by, through listening to how you folks handle these things. And, through now having read this 10th step, I don't know how many times, that here's the way we have to live. And don't you just love it? I left that job last night. I felt fabulous. Friday night, and I felt good, And, of course, I had the check in my pocket. And, it was just, I felt better than I had throughout the course of the week, because this thing had been handled properly. And I had been shown the way by a man who has no idea what the 10th step is. That's what I marvel about. And those are the kind of things that, that I've come to understand or come to see or be able to look at, in life that I couldn't before. So there's where I know that there's a difference. This interaction yesterday wouldn't have ended well, who knows how it would have ended, but it would have created more strife, I'm sure of that. And who knows. But So then, there's one more thing I know there's a short meeting, so I'm gonna be real quick about this one. This one really kicked me in the head. So we had a horrific event happen 10 days ago in Florida. It's just horrifying. And it really touched me as I hear this develop. And my first thought was, we gotta fry this kid. This kid's gotta go. This is not a human being. I'm frightened by this monster. So Thursday, I think it was Thursday, I'm at my computer and I'm working and the TV's on in the background. And I'm listening to this 911 call that comes in, and it's this kid's voice, and he's speaking to a 911 operator, and he's telling her that he had just punched a wall, he's having trouble with his anger, and his mom died a couple of months ago, and he doesn't know what to do. And I'm like, and Paula was in the room, I said, who was that? She said, that's the monster. And I'm like, holy mother of God. So, my first thinking is to really want to do something here to this kid. And now I'm like, sweet Jesus, did we fail this kid? Everybody failed this kid. And it's a horrifying event, but I can't find anything good in this throughout until I hear this message from this kid. And something is roiling around inside of me, and it's still happening, and I can't explain it to you, but I can tell you something has been touched inside of me by that moment that I still can't identify, and I just keep going to God with it, and because that's the only place to go. And that's what we hear here today, is that, we continue. So, I'm just here to tell you that I continue. Thanks.
Nice.